Black Champions, Miles Phillips Productions, April 11th, 1985. Benita Fitzgerald-Brown. Sound roll 33, camera roll 68, sound 103.
Second. All right. Position here. Go.
Benita Fitzgerald-Brown, you were an Olympic champion in 1984 at Los Angeles, and you also won in an event that no American had won in over 50 years. Were you aware of that when you went into the meet?
No, I wasn't. That more or less came out after I had won the medal. I guess, all the information and everything was right in hand to the media, so they picked up on that right away. And really, I was only the second woman to win it because Babe Didrikson was the first American woman and last before me.
What was it like going to Los Angeles? This was an incredible event. I mean, in terms of the size and really the glamorous dimension of this Olympics. Did that put any particular pressure on the athletes, you think?
The pressure was in making the U.S. team. To tell you the truth, the Olympic trials were very intense. All the athletes walked around like zombies for like 8 days, for the whole 8 days of the Olympic trials, because really, you can think about the games all you want, but if you don't make the team, you're not going to be there. And so you really have to concentrate on all your efforts into making the team. Even people, Edwin Moses, Carl Lewis, and people like that even had to really just focus in on the Olympic trials and really try not to look too far ahead. And after making the team, it seemed almost as if it were a piece of cake, because you kind of, well, if I've gotten through this, I can get through anything, and you kind of have a more relaxed attitude towards the games and can really enjoy all the hype and the hoopla, and along with, of course, concentrating on your event.
When you went to the trials, what did you feel about your chances?
I was confident that I could make the team. I was on the Olympic team in 1980 as a freshman in college. I was 18, and we didn't get to go to Moscow, but I didn't feel like I was in a position to really do well at the games in 1980 anyway. I thought I wanted to go there for the experience and just, to have been there, but as far as placing or winning a medal or something like that, I thought that was kind of 4 years along the way. And so coming into Olympic trials in '84, like I said, it was just very intense because I'd done it before and it was expected of me to do it again. And I was #1 in the country the year before, and top 10 in the world. So that pressure's on you. You're saying, well, I've done it before many, many times. I've never placed lower than second in the national championship. So that, all those things were pointing to the fact that, well, you should make the team, but anything can happen, especially in a hurdle race. You can trip over a hurdle, or I don't know, anything, fall. Anything can happen between the start and the finish of the race. So, and it did. 4 of us crossed the finish line at the exact same time in the Olympic trials, within 100th of a second of each other. The winner ran 13.12, and the next 3 of us crossed in 13.13. So it took a photo finish and about 20 minutes worth of examination in order to figure out who made the Olympic team, and I ended up second in the race. So it was pretty exciting.
Who are the top women hurdlers in the world today?
Kirsten Kanabe from East Germany, Bettina Jan from East Germany, and another woman from Poland, Lucy Kalik. Those are the top 3 in the world. I was ranked #9 in the country. I won the gold medal, but the Eastern Bloc countries weren't there for me to compete against them, and they ended up with faster times at the end of the season, even though I didn't ever get to really race against them throughout the year.
Do you regret that? Do you regret that the Eastern Bloc countries were not at the Olympics? Did you feel perhaps your level of competition might have been raised?
Yes, it would have been, definitely, but you have to look on the bright side of everything. I do anyway, and after I found out that they were going to boycott and they definitely weren't going to come, I just realized that, well, that just opens more doors for me and gives me a better chance to win a gold medal. So I just have to focus in on that and worry about everything else after, or what might have been. But I just felt like then there was more pressure on me because I felt like there's no reason for me not to win now, because my major competition had gone out with the Eastern Bloc countries.
Now you have raced Kristen Kanabe, I think, Is that her name?
Yeah.
From East Germany?
Uh-huh.
You've run against her.
Yes, but that was in the World Championships the year before, and I was 8th in the World Championships in 1983 in Helsinki. Bettina Jan won, and I think Kirsten Kanabe was second. And I didn't run a very good race. It was the end of the season in August, and I was still running collegiately then.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, we run a really heavy season in April, May, and June because of the collegiate season, especially collegians, because getting ready for NCAAs and your collegiate coaches have you running dual meets and invitationals and things like that. And you really get burnt out. And by August, you know, you're really on your last legs, and you're really just out there more or less going through the motions and doing what you can, but you're really past your peak. And that's the point I was at the World Championships in '83. So I really don't feel like I was at my best. I thought that if I had been, I probably would have been 4th or 5th in that race instead of 8th.
What is it like for you to race in other countries? I mean, what sort of reception do a lot of people have told us as we've talked to them that Peter Westbrook, for example, the Olympic fencer, said that the reception is not always good for American athletes in his experience. What has it been like for you when you race in other parts of the world?
Most of the time, for the track athletes, when we go in mostly European countries, they really like track and field a whole lot. They don't have the professional sports that we have as far as football, baseball, and everything else taking away from the amateur sports. So mostly it's soccer and track and field, and that's it. So they really know the American track and field athletes. So when they see you walking the streets or and you're in your hotel room and go down to a hotel lobby, you've got 50 or 60 people there hounding you for your autographs, where in the U.S. you don't get that kind of reception because there's so many good athletes in so many different sports that you really can't get to know them all. And so I feel like we get a better reception when we're overseas, myself, because of the fact that they appreciate track and field a little bit more.
On the point of your reception, you've raised the point that you get a better reception over there sometimes perhaps than you do in the United States. Many of the athletes, I think, after the Olympics, most particularly, and let's be frank about this, most particularly black athletes felt that America's response to them after the Olympics and the post-Olympics was not always as enthusiastic as it might have been. Many other athletes were paid much more attention. Many athletes got endorsements and very lucrative contracts, Mary Lou Retton most particularly. How do you think the American, particularly the black track athletes, it's important to note that all the gold medals won in track and field at the Olympics were won by black athletes. There is no black athlete on the Wheaties box.
Yeah.
How did you all talk about that? Well, what kind of feeling did you have?
Well, I was pretty disappointed at first because, you know, they led us to believe so much, I guess all the athletes, that if we did win gold medals and did do well, that there was going to be so much waiting for us down the road.
Take this time and like the video. Who's your favorite gold medalist?
And it wasn't there, and so you have to kind of, I guess, reevaluate your goals and say, well, first priority for me was to graduate from University of Tennessee in December, and I did that. And I got an agent and everything, and the things just didn't come in for me. So I get to Austin, Texas. I said, well, since I'm not going to be doing a lot of endorsements, I might as well start on my career, and that's opened the door for me to work at Trade-Corps as an industrial engineer. So like I said, I have a tendency to look on the bright side of things. The major major good feeling I got out of, I guess, the Olympic Games was the fact that the people at home, my neighbors in Dale City, Virginia, and the people at home really appreciated what I did out at the Olympic Games. They had a parade for me and a reception and everything after I got back from the Games. And still now, I'm supposed to be the keynote speaker at my sister's graduation in July at my old high school. And I used to play in the Lassie League, softball. So they have a scholarship fund set up in my honor, and they're naming a street after me in my hometown and things like that. So when you really get down to it, as long as those people really appreciate what you've done in your family and you've done something for them and done something to improve their quality of life, then I feel like I feel fulfilled. So that's what I have to concentrate on.
You had what would appear on paper at least, a very rich sort of childhood. I mean, rich in the sense that you had an opportunity to learn a lot of things. You were a musician, you took dance, you were an athlete. Tell us a little bit about growing up.
Looking back on it now, I feel like I had a terrific childhood, and my parents did everything 99% right. I'm sure they didn't do everything perfectly right, but they introduced me to all kinds of things and more or less let me choose and find out what I was best at. And even then, in high school, I had my academics, of course, and then music and track and field. And my father wanted me to go into music, and I was doing really well, probably better in music probably my freshman and sophomore years in high school than I was in track and field. And then after my junior year, I made my first U.S. team and traveled to Russia and West Germany, and I met a whole lot of people and got to travel a little bit more the next winter during the indoor track season, and found that I guess I could travel more and meet more people and do more things.
Cut.
Sound 104.
Benita Fitzgerald-Brown, I think a lot of people would be interested in what the athlete goes through on the day of a championship. Do you have a particular ritual or the things that you did in Los Angeles on the morning, let us say, of your gold medal hurdles run? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's funny because when you're at the Olympic Games and you're in the Olympic Village, it's kind of a totally different atmosphere from one that you've ever been in before. I've been to like the World University Games and things like that, or World Championships, where you've had to stay in a village. But I think there's so much more excitement at the Olympic Village. I guess maybe because there's so many more athletes, you know, because there's so many different sports. But I stayed out in Pasadena with Laren, my husband, for the whole week and a half he was out there. And then the night before my race, I stayed in the village because that's what it was. I wanted to get up and eat breakfast and do all that and not have to worry about having to travel on the freeway from Pasadena all the way to the village. So I stayed in the village, and there were about 8 of us, I guess, in 2 rooms, so you're really crowded in there. So I get up and I guess got ready and got dressed and ate some breakfast and came back up and sat around and watched television. I was talking to the girls in the room, and it was going through my mind, and they were saying, well, how do you feel? And I said, I feel ready to go. I was just kind of excited and full of anticipation, I guess, just kind of really excited, I guess, to get out there. I wasn't nervous at all. I was just excited, and that was a good feeling, because if you're too nervous, a lot of times you can't really concentrate on what you need to concentrate on. I was just looking forward to the race a whole lot, and so that's really all that was going through my mind. I just couldn't wait to get out there.
Tell us about the major competitors in the finals.
Well, 2 of my teammates, all 3 of us made it to the final, all 3 Americans that were entered into the 100-meter hurdle race. So that was Kim Turner, who ended up getting the bronze medal, and Pam Page, who ended up 8th. And then also from Great Britain, Shirley Strong, and she had finished 5th in the World Championships the year before, the race that I had finished 8th in. And so she was a major competition, probably even more so than my teammates. And a girl that had won a gold medal in the heptathlon, I can't think of her name, but she was from Australia. She was a good hurdler. And a couple from West Germany also. So the whole field was pretty full of people that were running close to the same times. Mine was slightly faster than the rest of them, but a few hundredths of a second don't make that much difference when you're that type of competition.
Did you feel were you affected at all by the size of the crowd? Of course, the place you were running in is an incredibly large stadium. Did that affect you at all as you sort of put that out of your mind? What actually happens when you go into the starting blocks? Is all that shut out, or?
Well, people are usually nice at an event like that. They're really quiet when before the gun goes off, when they're giving you the commands in the blocks. I didn't really notice the crowd while I'm warming up. They let you out there, you go through the tunnel, and they check your spikes and everything like that, and they check your numbers and all that type of thing. And then they lead you out to the track to another bench where you have to sit there, or you can just run around, but you can't get into the blocks and warm up over the hurdles yet. So you're kind of looking around and doing strides mostly. That's all I was doing, just trying to keep my legs warm and loose. And I didn't really notice the crowd that much either. The noise is, it's kind of like a lull, like when you're in a cafeteria and you're eating, you know there's noise, but you don't really pay that much attention to it because you're concentrating on something else. And you get into the blocks and the race goes off, and I didn't really hear the crowd either during the race, but after the semifinal race, I won my semifinal and ran a good, strong race, and that's what my goal was, to run a good, strong race and go into the final with a positive attitude. I crossed the finish line and I heard this monstrous roar because they just love to see U.S. athletes do well. They don't care if it's the semifinal or a trial heat or anything. If you win, they just go crazy. And they were waving flags and yelling my name, and just as if I had won the gold medal already. And so I said, gosh, if they're going to do this for the semifinal, I can't wait to get out here and see, and try and win this race so that I can feel this feeling again, because it was just so great. It was a wonderful feeling. So I had to come back, half an hour later and run the final. Well, almost half an hour. It's about an hour and a half they give you, but by the time the semifinal race had run and I got back to the warm-up area, I had half an hour. So I came back again and won the race that much later.
The stakes at the Olympics, of course, are tremendously high. I mean, people come there, I'm sure, feeling that this is, the chance of a lifetime. What does that do to the relationship between the athletes? Are you able to speak to the other? I mean, can you maintain any sort of relationship with the rest of the people?
Yeah, I think like I said, the feelings were more intense at the Olympic trials than they were at the Olympic Games, as far as between the athletes were concerned, because you're here to beat this person out of a spot on the team, and that is just, like I said, that is a major thing, is just getting there, because after that you feel like it's all downhill. All you have to do is run your race, keep yourself together, and like Coach Brooks Johnson always says, he was the head women's coach, what got you there will keep you there. So you continue to do the things that you've been doing, and more, 9 times out of 10 it will come out well for you. So I ended up talking to the athletes probably more at the games, and especially my teammates, than I did at the trials. It was just kind of, you see them and you don't want to really get too friendly because you don't want to let your guard down until after the race was over. But after the semifinals and I had run well, I talked to the people that were in my race that had made the final. They were saying how well I'd run, and I compliment them, and you go on off about your business and do your warm-up. And after the race, I wasn't sure if I had won right away. It's like, well, I know I put my arms up and I jerked them down really quick, and I said, I don't want to celebrate too soon. It seems it's too overwhelming that you could have actually have won a gold medal in the Olympics. And the girls came up and patting me on the head and hugging me and stuff, saying I won. So, the people in the race say that you've won. Really, you should believe it. So I was happy. But the girls are really great in my race.
What made you choose the University of Tennessee?
When I was coming out of high school, a lot of people were recruiting me in a lot of schools, and I had narrowed it down to UCLA and Penn State, Tennessee, and University of Virginia. And Tennessee seemed to have a women's program overall that was up and coming and that really cared about the athletes. And the head coach there at the time, Terry Crawford, taught me all the time, and she talked about more things than just track and field. She was interested in my academic life and how the engineering school was going to work into the fact that I was there on a full scholarship and things like that. And she seemed really interested in me as an individual, and I appreciated that. She didn't have a sprint hurdle coach before I got there, and she hired one especially so that I would get the training I needed. So when she was saying that she was looking for a sprint hurdle coach so that I would get the best training, since she didn't know that much about the sprints and the hurdles, I felt, well, she's really putting a lot of effort into this, and that's why I went.
The hurdle event has always impressed me as something tremendously difficult, because you have to maintain speed and you also have to be able to elevate yourself, lift yourself over the hurdles. Does skill in that come from training, or do you have to have some special sort of natural gift for it? How did you come to it?
You have to have a pretty natural rhythm inside you, so that it's kind of instinctive once you've done it enough times to know that 3 steps and another hurdle is going to be there. But I started running the hurdles in junior high school. There were only 4 hurdles over 50 yards, and naturally came out of the blocks and went over the hurdle and had 3 steps in between and went to the next one and 3 steps without alternating my legs or anything like that. And that was the right technique for the event. And so I just kind of naturally fell into it, where a lot of girls would hop over the hurdle and kind of take itty-bitty steps and hop again. I wasn't doing that and never have. I used to brag that I had never fallen in a hurdle race, but I did last year in Columbus, Ohio. But that was one nice thing because of the natural rhythm, because of the fact that I naturally fell into the event, I hadn't had any problems with trying to get to the hurdle. And it takes a lot of practice as far as refining the technique of hurdling. I'm very long-legged and I have a lot of speed, but my speed usually comes from my stride length. So a couple of years ago, my coach and I had to get together and decide how to shorten my stride and increase the stride frequency so that I wouldn't have to take such big steps in between the hurdles. It was getting me too close to the hurdles, so I was hitting them towards the end of the race. So I chopped down my stride, and now I don't sprint as fast as far as the open race is concerned, but it has helped my hurdling out tremendously.
Have you ever competed in any other track events besides the hurdles?
Yes, I used to sprint, do the 100 meters and 200 meters. For like 3 or 4 years, I was ranked in top 10 in the country in all 3 events. But when I decided to totally concentrate on the hurdles in '83, that's when everything turned around. I went from number 2 in the nation, number 1, and that felt really good. So I decided just to concentrate on the hurdles ever since then.
I would have to imagine that when you've won a gold medal, I mean, certainly there's a great deal of pressure to get there to win the medal, and there's a great deal of pressure in the process of winning at the actual race. But it would seem to me also there'd be a tremendous amount of pressure once you've won the medal, because then you've got to think, well, where do I go from here? If I don't win my next race, people will say it was just a fluke. If I go to the Olympics again and don't do well, people will say I was just a flash in the pan. Do you feel that? You're still in training?
Yeah, I'm feeling it a lot because it's hard for me to get back up for the races and for training because I guess I can.
Are we out? We'll come back to that. We'll come back.
Sound roll 34, camera roll 70. Sound 105.
Had you participated in other track events before your hurdling career started?
I have run the 100 and 200 and of course relays on my college team, and I really enjoyed sprinting, but I just kind of fell into running the hurdles and concentrating on that event because I felt like I had the most potential in the hurdles. I was ranked top 10 in the country for like 3 or 4 years in both the 100 and the 200 and the hurdles all at the same time, and ended up dropping the hurdles and the sprints in '83 and becoming number 1 in the country because I've concentrated all my efforts into one place. They say jack of all trades and master of none. That's more or less what I was until I concentrated on just the hurdles.
Tell us something about your family. You come from a rather extraordinary background. I think certainly a very encouraging and nurturing one. Tell us a little bit about the people in your family.
My father graduated from Virginia Union University. Both parents did their undergraduate work anyway. And my father got his master's at Virginia Tech, and my mother got hers at Columbia University. Both of them, I guess, started their careers before they got married. I think they started teaching, I guess, my mother about 22, 23, and my father after he got out of the Air Force. So they had probably 5 or 6 years on their own, so they didn't get married till about 29. I think they were more mature and more ready to handle, a lot of things than, well, maybe even Lauren and I are now at 23 and 21. So they really knew what they wanted to teach their children, the values and everything else, and how they wanted to go about doing that. So all my life they've introduced a lot of things to me that a lot of parents don't, or just let the child find out for themselves. But my father would always take me sightseeing and bike riding and introduce me to classical music, and I played the violin, I was in ballet, tap dancing, gymnastics, softball, you name it. So I got to explore a whole lot of different things and then find out what I was best in.
You are an example, I think, also of a person whose athletic ability acquired for her an education. You've recently graduated from the University of Tennessee. You might probably have gone to college anyway, but how do you feel about the fact that athletics can, in fact, provide a person an education? Is that a good thing? We hear about the abuses that people are recruited into virtual nervous breakdowns, and that there is some abuse of athletes once they get into college. What was it like being a full scholarship person at the University of Tennessee?
For me, it wasn't as bad as some of the stories you've heard or I've heard, because of the fact that my coaches were so understanding and responsive to my needs. And that's, like I said, one reason why I went to University of Tennessee in the first place. They understood that engineering takes a lot of time, and I understood also that track and field was the reason I was at University of Tennessee in the first place, as far as, you know, them paying for my school. So instead of taking the not required, but suggested 18, 17 hours a quarter, I took 12 to 15 hours a quarter, and it took 5 years to graduate. But in that way, I was more rested and didn't have to put so much effort into my schoolwork that would take away from my track, and vice versa. During finals week or during the time I had a test, if I had stayed up all night studying, or if I needed extra time for a test, I would just tell my track coach, and she would say, okay, take the day off, you know, go on back and study, or go back home and sleep, or do whatever, you know, I need to do. So I had really good understanding with my coaches, though. For me, it worked out really well. I took advantage of the situation my 5th year in '84, this past year, to continue to go to school. A lot of people would have taken off from school in order to train for the Olympics, but I figured I had been running well and going to school for 4 years, and I felt like I could do it one more year and ended up and finish up my degree. And so that's what I did. I didn't want to take off that 1 year. I've seen a lot of people do that, and then, well, I'd rather do this and never really get back to it. And since it was free and they were still paying for it, I felt like I really should do it, and that's what I did.
When you were growing up, did you have were there athletes, were there people in sports you looked up to particularly?
No, not really. Not as far as, you know, heroes or idols. I had heard of, you know, Wilma Rudolph, of course, and Jesse Owens, and you always think of things like, wow, you know, that'll never happen to me. You know, it's more or less not something that you're aspiring to do, but as far as really admiring them for doing what they've done. But not until I was in high school. I was a freshman, and a neighbor of mine and also friend and teammate, Paula Gervin, made the Olympic team in '76, and she was a senior at my high school on the same team as I was, and she made the team in the high jump. And my coach at the end of that summer said to me, well, Benita, 4 years from now you could be there too. You have the potential, you have the talent. And she said, just something to think about. And 4 years later I was, and 4 years after that I was also, and won the gold medal. So I think Paula really had a great deal to do with my realizing that it's not just the Wilma Rudolph and Jesse Owens, someone way far away, but it's someone right here at home that lives around the corner with a similar background, you know, both parents very educated and living in a middle-class neighborhood that can achieve those things. You really don't have to, you know, be way in Mars or something. So it seems almost as if they are, because they're so far away from reality when you're, you know, 12, 13 years old.
If a friend came to you and said, I've got a daughter, 10, 12 years old, let's say, and she dreams about being an Olympian, she dreams about being a champion, will you come and look at her, take a look at what kind of athletic ability she has, what kind of temperament she has? What are the kind of things you'd be looking at? What kind of advice would you give a person? First of all, what kind of things would you look for, temperamentally and perhaps in terms of physical?
Well, a lot of people have the talent to be champions in a sport, not necessarily just track and field, but any sport. And there's so many athletes, especially guys I know, that have gone to college or have been in high school and just been awesome athletes and gotten to college and you never hear them again, or they don't have the grades to go to college and you really never hear them again after that. And it's really disappointing. So I would look for average intelligent person, you know, because you'd have to have that in order to know what it means to be a champion, what you're going to have to put into it physically and emotionally, and also to take advantage of whatever opportunities may come your way, such as a full scholarship in your particular sport. Also, a person that doesn't have tunnel vision, I guess, as far as wanting just to do one thing oblivious to everything else in their lives. I think it really is important to take into account your education or your family and everything else that's going on around you, because a lot of people put all their eggs into one basket and then it doesn't come true for them, and then they're kind of devastated. They don't have anything else to fall back on. A lot of people in this summer in '84 did not make the Olympic team that should have, You know, in my race, the girl that had been ranked #1 in the country before me, Stephanie Hightower, did not make the team. And she was concentrating on that. That was her #1 goal for 4 or 5 years, was to make the Olympic team, and it didn't happen. Well, she does have her degree, so she had something else to fall back on. But a lot of people didn't. And a lot of people, they're older now, and 28, 29 years old. They don't have another Olympiad in them. And so if they haven't gone out and tried to do something else outside of track and field or outside of their sport, then they're really kind of left in the dust as far as something else to do with their lives are concerned.
Do you think too much emphasis is placed on athletics among black youngsters across the country?
I don't think so. I think that it's not too much emphasis placed on sports. It's not enough placed on other areas. They just make it seem as if sports is the end all. I think you really do need to throw yourself into it in order to do well. You have to concentrate on the sport when you're there. When you're at practice, you need to be concentrating on practice. When you're at the meet, concentrating on what you're doing, and putting all of yourself into that. But they don't concentrate enough on everything else. Like I said, you need to be a little bit more well-rounded so that there are other things, and don't let your schoolwork go by the wayside, because you can be the best athlete in the world, and if you don't have the grades, you're not going to A, get into the university, or B, if you get in, you won't be able to stay.
How would you finish the sentence, to be a champion?
To be a champion, I don't know. As far as how it feels, or
Well,
wanting to be
however,
one.
if somebody said here, first part of a sentence, to be a champion, and what would be the rest of the sentence as far as you're concerned?
To be a champion is to have achieved the pinnacle of success in a particular area. That's what I feel it is.
Okay.
Who would you like for me to do a video on next? What are your thoughts about this video? Please share them in the comments. Please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.